I invite you to put your feet square on the floor, to sit comfortably in whatever chair you're in, sofa, however you're participating in the live stream today. And just take a couple of deep cleansing breaths in and out. And the intention for our meditation today that I would invite you to participate in is to remember and to listen. So the first thing we're going to do is imagine a grounding cord going from the base of your spine, your first chakra, going down through the earth to the center of the earth. Just imagine that grounding cord being there. And now allow any energy that's in your space that's not of you to go down that grounding cord to the center of the earth, where the earth will transmute it, take away whatever's not yours, and send whatever's yours back up to you. And send a little spiritual hello to the earth. We are of the earth. And now focus your attention above your head and imagine a big golden sun that shines down on you through your crown chakra and flushes sunlight throughout your entire body, flushing out anything that's not yours. And then say a little spiritual hello to the cosmos, because we are also of the cosmos. And now I invite you to take any anxiety, any pain, anything that's bothering you today or has this week, what we would call your story, and I would invite you to gently place it into a paper sack and move it in your imagination to a place just a little far away, not too far away, but at least like 15, 20 feet or so. And we can certainly pick that story up once we're done with the meditation. But for right now, we are just going to let that be there and experience the feeling of not having a story for just a moment. Without our story, it's easier to remember that we have everything we need right now within us, all around us. And just feel what that feels like to be free. And in this place of freedom, it's hopefully a little easier to listen. And to hear what our inner guidance is telling us today. So I invite you to take another deep breath in and release it out. And for the next few moments, we will listen. Now begin to bring your attention back to whatever room you happen to be in. And remember that whatever you heard or didn't hear in your meditation, whatever experience you had, is valid, is totally as it was meant to be. And now is the time, if we choose to pick up that bag that we left about 15, 20 feet away. The bag of our cares and concerns, the bag of our story. Remembering that there's nothing wrong with our story. We're not trying to get rid of it. It's part of who we are. But I would invite you to ask yourself this question, and it may be a good question to periodically ask ourselves. And that is, am I running my story, or is my story running me? And feel free to ask yourself that question whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever you're feeling scared, worried. And just to remember, just asking the question will help you remember. And I hope everyone has a wonderful, peaceful day. Thank you.
Hello, Unity of Madison, and good morning. As you have probably figured out, I am not at the church today. I have taken a Sunday off, but hey, I couldn't leave you without a message, so here I am via video. Hope everyone had a very Merry Christmas, and hope you're looking forward to 2021 and hopefully a different kind of 2021 in a different kind of way, like we're talking post-pandemic 2021. So anyway, so now, we come up on the end of the year, and it's been a year, hasn't it? I mean, who would have thought that this time last year, Mark and I were in the sanctuary on All Music Sunday thinking, who would have thought that this time last year it would just pretty much be he and I in the sanctuary, and that we would be standing 6 feet apart and wearing masks. So it's just been a different kind of ride for us, hasn't it? And who would have thought that we would be alive in such a time of change? This opportunity of this time of change. And so now the first day of 2021, it's just around the corner, and many people start the new year with something positive. We look at it as a time to start fresh, and just a time to make some of those long awaited or perhaps desired changes that we've been wanting to make for a while. So, a new year's a time of expectation and just a time of newness. And perhaps you've made some New Year's resolutions to help define what it is that you want, and to help you keep on track. And, resolutions are great, but let me ask you this. How often do we first make the space to allow for those New Year's resolutions? Don't we often try to squeeze them into perhaps an already crowded room full of junk that's just really no longer serving us? It's kind of like having a bag full of stuff. The bag is almost ripping at the seams because it's full of stuff, and yet we keep on continuing to try to cram stuff in there, hoping that the bag won't rip. In reality, it would be much easier to put stuff in that bag if we first remove a few things. And the things that we would likely remove would be those things that we really probably don't need much of, right? So New Year's resolutions and other changes aren't really a whole lot different when you really think about it. These resolutions are based on changes that we believe will improve our lives, but we first need to make room for those things. So our Burning Bowl service is coming up on New Year's Eve, and it's a time where we practice release on that day during that ceremony. It's okay to release what we don't want to make room for those things that we do want. In fact, it's almost a requirement that we do this. But let's talk a little bit on how we can release. How we can start to empty those bags to begin to make room. So the first thing I want to talk about today is strength. Now, strength is one of our 12 powers here at Unity. Strength being the ability to endure, to stay the course, and to really just to persevere. It can at times be challenging to persevere though, can it? When we feel lots of things pulling our attention away from our spiritual paths, maybe it's fear. It can be fear of the unknown. And we've had a lot of that in 2020 with COVID and a lot of other things that have really kept our attention and maybe, kind of put us in that place of feeling fear a little bit. Fear of what's going to happen next, fear of where it's all going to go, fear of wondering how and when it's all going to end, right? So our Advent book tells us this. It says a spiritual strength like no other is our foundation to stay the course when challenged by life in navigating new landscapes. And boy, oh boy, have we had a new landscape to navigate, But you know what? You're right here, right now. You're here. You're nowhere else but right here. You've stood the course, and you stood the course with your power and with your strength. You have endured, and you continue to endure. So I want to read a little bit out of our Advent booklet. We still have a few days left in this. And on December 27th, it tells us, a spiritual strength like no other is our foundation to stay the course when challenged by life and navigating new landscapes. Philippians 4:13 tells us, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So another one of the ways that we can start to practice that release is with another one of our 12 powers, and that 12 power is wisdom. And our booklet states this about wisdom. Wisdom is like an eternal lighthouse within us, faithfully guiding and always supporting us in spiritual understanding, which leads to taking right action. It is our ability to always turn within, to be still and to listen. But how is it that we find that wisdom? Well, first let me ask this. Where is that wisdom? Where is it right now already? Where do we carry that innate wisdom that we are? Because we know we're all of these 12 powers. So where do we carry it? You carry it inside because it is your natural ability. It's not something that just a few of us have. I don't just have it. One or two of you doesn't just have it. We all have it inside, and it is always present. But we have to be quiet to hear it and to discern it. So remember a couple weeks back, I talked about how it's difficult to hear a whisper in a noisy room. It's one of those situations where you'd have to ask everyone to, kind of tone it down just a little bit and try to be a little quiet so you can hear that whisper. And this is the same thing. We can't hear that wisdom if we're living in that chaotic state of body and mind or mind. We have to be willing to go within. We have to be willing to go inside to where it is that we're going to hear that wisdom. It's where we're going to discern it. Our booklet also tells us when we are singularly focused on divine power, our words, thoughts, and actions can transform the world. So that is that place where you're going to find wisdom. It wants for you to find it, and it's waiting for you to find it. And when you turn to the right or when you turn to the left, your ears shall hear a word behind you saying, this is the way, walk in it. Isaiah 30:21. We also practice release with love. Now this is one that sounds familiar because it was the topic of one of our Advent Sundays, right? One of the topics was love. Now, we talked about what it means to share love and to be love, but how do we release with love? Our booklet says, when we embody the power of love, we realize we are one with all life, transforming every judgment, wound, or suffering we hold into harmony, peace, and wholeness. So we realize that we are one with all life, and we hold all that we are and all that we experience in harmony, peace, and wholeness. Because when we do this, we know at the end of the day, there is only love. And that's in that love, there is only light, right? In that love, there is only light. Light that illuminates our path every step of the way. Light that awakens the realization that all things are indeed possible. So the question then becomes, what is there really to fear? Is there anything to fear? What is there to try to control? What is there to not release? And I have prophetic powers in understanding all mysteries and all knowledge. And if I have all faith so as to move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. 1 Corinthians 13:2. So we've talked about power, we've talked about strength, and we've talked about love. And these things that we talk about, these are things that we talk about quite a bit here at Unity, aren't they? Most of us probably know by now that these are really very handy tools or powers to have in our tool chest, in our spiritual tool chest. So now I want to talk about one that I personally find to be the most fun, and that is the imagination. The one that, in fact, I think that's probably the most fun for me because it's completely limitless, right? We can do anything through our imaginations. So Mindy and I yesterday, we were having a conversation about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny. You know, Mindy mentioned about how when she was a child, she envisioned the Easter Bunny. You know, she envisioned this bunny kind of just hopping through the yard, wearing an apron, carrying a basket, and just hopping around and just dropping gifts as she went along, dropping gifts out of her basket. The imagination of a child. You know, and I got to thinking, who says that we have to give that up just because we're adults? You know, especially Santa Claus, because I'm not sure as adults we can't ask Santa Claus to bring us some money. I mean, wouldn't that be nice? Hey, I'm kind of liking that idea a little bit. But our book tells us this about imagination. Our book tells us that imagination is our ability to see a new world and then some. It is our capacity to envision a transformed world as well as to create and unfold our mental images until we experience their realization. Imagination is the kindling of our divine nature, the glowing embers of eternal divine ideas, full of energy, waiting to be formed from infinite possibilities. Developing our faculty of imagination helps us catch a seedling of an idea and grow it into its fullness, giving shape to the sacred and forming God into what the world needs most: compassion, joy, love, courage, and peace. So we can release by using our imaginations. We can release by envisioning what it is we want to see in our lives through the power of imagination. By holding onto that vision and by allowing it to grow into its fullness, allowing it to blossom, allowing it to take shape and to form into what our book says, what the world needs most. For as he or she thinketh in his or her heart, so is he or she. Proverbs 23:7. And finally, we arrive at understanding. Now, understanding is huge when it comes to release. Our book tells us it is natural to seek understanding when times are chaotic and confusing. The faculty of understanding is comprehending life's circumstances from the knowledge of our divine nature, not just from facts we collect. So if you're like me, you probably try to make sense out of everything. You know, things happening in the world, things happening in your life, just kind of, in your inner circle. Sometimes, though, we're just necessarily not going to be able to make sense out of things the way we had hoped we would. Sometimes maybe just not right when it's happening, we won't be able to make sense, but maybe sometimes years later, we look back at a certain time in our life and we have one of those aha moments. That moment where it clicks. And that moment where we know that what it was that we walked through now makes perfect sense. But sometimes that just does not happen. Sometimes we may truly never know, at least not during this lifetime. Sometimes we just have to approach it from the knowledge of our divine nature, rather than from the part of, the ego part of us that really wants to know and has to try to make sense out of everything. And our booklet tells us, for the kingdom of heaven to unfold, we need to be able to stretch, to see with new eyes, taking in all that is happening, not only with our five senses, but with our hearts and our minds too. So in this instance, we release. We approach whatever it is that's going on with understanding. Understanding that exceeds our five senses. Understanding that instead is approached with heart and with mind. So I think we've been forced to do a lot of that this past year, haven't we? We have all felt frustration on trying to understand it all. Why is this happening? We wonder, what is it that the universe is trying to tell us? Why? Why is all of this happening? I know I've gone over many things in my head during this past year. Maybe it's the earth healing itself, I've told myself. Maybe it's the universe telling us that we need to slow down. Maybe it's because we're entering into this new way of being. I don't know. And it's been difficult to try to make sense out of it all through my five senses. But when I approach it with my heart and with my mind, it changes a little bit. Knowing that maybe I don't have to understand it at all by what I pick up with my five senses. When I do that, it's then when I'm finally able to understand it the way that I should. I can understand that no matter whether it's a pandemic or something else going on around me, that I'm divine and that all is unfolding okay and that it's unfolding exactly the way that it should. And I also know that I'm going to be okay and that it's all going to be okay. That I will change and I will bend along with the universe in whatever way it's asking me to change and to bend. That I will make the choice to sit back, to relax, and to open and learn whatever it is that I'm being called upon to open and learn. Who is wise and understanding among you? Show by your good life that your works are done with gentleness, born of wisdom. James 3:13. So we have our burning bowl ceremony this coming Thursday on New Year's Eve. And as we approach that day, I invite you to think about what it is that you need to release. What are you being called to release? Now, the sanctuary is going to be open on Thursday, New Year's Eve, from noon to 4 p.m. on a walk-in basis. And there will be no more than 4 people permitted in the sanctuary at a time for safety reasons. And we're going to have a bowl burning in the sanctuary. And we invite you to stop in and to release there at the church if you feel comfortable doing that. And if you don't feel comfortable coming into the sanctuary, or even if you do stop by, we still invite you to join our burning bowl service, which will be that same evening on New Year's Eve. And it's going to be at 6:30 p.m. via Zoom. So you'll see that on the Unity of Madison calendar. You'll see the way to click the Zoom link and to join that. Or also check your e-blast because it will be in there as well. So I invite you to think about what it is that no longer serves you, and to prepare to release it. We're going to make room in that bag for the goodness in your life. We're going to make room for that to move into those spaces when we release that junk that no longer serves us. The good that you deserve and the good that you are. Namaste, everybody. I will see you all on New Year's Eve and next Sunday. So please stay well and take care. Stay safe. And again, namaste. Bye-bye, everybody.